Hello, how are you? Welcome to today's podcast. My name is Eden Chirende. If you're joining us for the first time, this is the Weapons of War podcast. Here to shed more light on some of the newsmaking pieces that we interact with on a daily, to dig deeper and to expound on them. So today I want to look at the recent visa restrictions, or I would tell them adjustments that were announced by the US mission in Uganda that rolled back our visa durations from 2 years multiple entry to 3 months single entry. I know you may be having a lot of questions. There are a lot of questions flying around. Why? How did they come up with? Some of the whys were answered, but we are going to delve deeper in the decisions that informed this step. Just to recap a little, the US cut Uganda's visa validity to 3 months. Those traveling to the United States for business and tourism will now receive visas valid for 1 entry for 3 months, which is down from 2 years multiple entry. Okay, and the reasons this took effect on July 8th, and the reasons that were fronted by the US Ambassador William Popp. He said that this was to protect the national interests and security of the United States. Yes, in a nutshell. But we are going to delve deeper in why exactly that happened. One, what we need to also consider is that this is a global move. It was not entirely targeting Uganda. US was not witch hunting Uganda to be like, Uganda, let us come down on you. This was a global move. It was not exactly unique to Uganda. Here we looked at over 30 countries are going to face this kind of revisions. Key of them, I'll just give an example of Nigeria. Nigeria, for them, they had 5-year multiple entry visas, which were also reduced to 3 months, same as us, and single entry. So again, we may ask, why was this? Of course, one of the reasons that were fronted was that this was in response to the President Donald Trump's executive order that he signed. But again, we also need to ask, why did he sign this executive order? What informed the signing of this executive order, we may ask. So that's where we're going to get to. Also, perhaps to elaborate more, the other people that will be affected by these visa restrictions are, even if you're already a citizen of the US, again, you find that there will be, if you violate their rules or their laws, again, your citizenship can be revoked. And again, also those, also the right to entry into the US will be reserved by the immigration services. So there's also a chance of you getting to the other side, to US, and then upon review, they tell you no, you cannot be allowed in. So there are lots of adjustments in their visa restrictions, but we are going to delve into the main reasons that informed this step. So we shall look at one, is the immigration crisis that the US has been facing for years, but rather skyrocketed or blew out of proportion from about 2020 to 2024 during the previous administration's tenure. We shall see that according to figures, this was February 2024, it was estimated that 7.2 million illegal immigrants entered USA, an amount which was greater than the population of 36 states. There is also that on average, 160,000 illegal immigrants who are encountered on their borders. I think that was the southern border with Mexico. That's averaging 7,600 encounters daily. That was at the peak of this crisis. So you find that certain of these numbers were getting way out of hand, especially during the previous administration's tenure, and I think they never put a lot of emphasis on their border controls. So with that getting out of hand, it affected the country in so many various areas that we are going to look at. So again, another example here, we look at that, for example, this was in May 2021. They encountered 34 persons that attempted to cross into the USA. 180. And now, on a year, this was May 2021. This was a staggering 674% increase when you consider to May 2020. So you find that this increase or the escalation of this crisis of illegal immigrants moving into the country had a lot of pressure to the country. One of those pressures was the cost of looking after these illegal immigrants after they had moved to the US. These are some of the statistics I found that on average, the estimations range between 180 to 200 billion expenditure annually that they spend on illegal immigrants, not the legal ones. These are the illegal ones. Now, when you look at the country spending the excess of over 200 billion annually, then you know that a step has to be taken, or a step sooner than later, a step will be taken by a given leader, perhaps not the previous administration or perhaps the incoming administration. And some of the major areas where much of the money was spent in healthcare, that was about 30 to 40 billion, education, 50 to 60 billion, welfare, 10 to 15 billion, shelter, that's housing, that's 5 to 10 billion. And then the enforcement to ensure that this was stopped, there's 20 billion. So you find that with this escalation in expenditure, it puts a lot of pressure on the national budgets, you get. So, and again, that necessitates an administration to take action. In fact, in certain estimates, put the figure of not just between 180 and 200 billion, but to 600 billion. When they factor in now, these are the ones they counted, 7.2 million illegal immigrants. What about those that they never encountered? So, and yet they also enjoy certain of these services. It is so you find that any leader, or when such a crisis escalates, and it is bound to peak at a certain point, and a country is bound to take action at a certain time t. And while we look at those violations or illegal immigrations, Uganda, we did not hold ourselves in glory either. According to figures I picked off the internet in 2023, out of 6,652 business and tourism visa holders, people who sought visas to go to the US for tourism or business, 560 overstayed. That's 8.42% they overstayed. Then in 2022, out of 2,303 visa applicants, people that got the visas to the US, you find that 683 overstayed. That's 29.7. So we have also been part of this statistic that US, perhaps the US administration must reduce for the 7.2 illegal immigrants. So with that in mind, now we've looked at the expenditure in terms of the bill that goes to look after these illegal immigrants as one of the reasons why these visa adjustments may have been taken. One, we've looked at the numbers that were flowing into the US and the effect that they had in the US. And we've looked at the money side of things, the expenditure. But then there's also another layer that certain of these people, here I'll want to pause a bit and play a video by the director of the US Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Tom Homan, who states that over 20 million, he estimates that over 20 million illegal immigrants are in the US. Over 20 million. Now you find that if there are over 20 million, he says that over 700,000 of these have been charged with criminal offenses, and they are walking the streets in the country. Hear him out here.
Here the borders are. Can you give an estimate as to how many individuals are in the United States illegally? That's number one, and I'm sure you're very familiar with that number, an estimate. And the second question is, I have a list that the White House put out of individuals, 100 ICE arrests since the beginning of the president's term. and the people are arrested for various very serious crimes. First-degree murder, convicted of rape, convicted of murder and aggravated burglary, sexual assault of a child. How many of the individuals that are in the United States illegally are people like this, really bad people?
Well, first of all, how many illegal aliens I think in the United States? At least 20 million. Where'd you count that number? We've been speaking about 12 million for 20 years. We know we got 10.5 that we know of came to the border. How many don't we know? I talk about known gotaways at 2 million. How many unknown gotaways we have? Like between the Big Bend sector in Texas where there's no technology. How many? 1,000 people did get across through there. We wouldn't know. We would know now. But, you know, so I would venture over 20 million. But your question is, last count, last I looked, there was about 700,000 illegal aliens with criminal charges walking the streets of this country. 700,000. And that's what we're looking for now. That's what we're prioritizing. Them and national security.
Now, you may ask yourself, if that is your own country, what would you then do? Wouldn't you think about revising the visa policy that you have in order to stop the bleeding or stop the inflow of so many people coming into your country, in order to first sort out the crisis and then see how to move forward? I think that makes sense a bit. And again, we shall also see that ICE issued a report about the types of illegal immigrants in the US that they encounter. They say that 13,099 were convicted of murder. 15,811 were convicted of sexual assault. 431,000 were convicted criminals. Now imagine these illegal immigrants. They have come in large numbers, that's one. The country is spending so much money on them in the regions of 200 billion, some estimate even beyond 600 billion. Then on top of that, there are loads of criminals. Some of them are gang members. We saw some of them, the clip will play, who were deported. Gang members, unleashing all manner of, reign of terror within the US. Sexual perverts, murderers, and all sorts of people. So you find that US is not just grappling with the problem of so many people, but how to look after them, provide services to them, and as if that's not enough, a huge number of them are criminals. So it's a whole mixture of issues that really combine to inform the decision for the US to decide that, we need to first put a stop or fight back on the number of immigrants or people that we are allowing in order to first sort out what is within. Now, that's not exactly done to hurt the countries where these immigrants are coming from. That's done by a leader who cares more about their people. Now, I would give an example. On a personal level, there may be lawlessness happening, say, around where you stay. And perhaps you don't have a fence, the house is open, and then you hear there's lawlessness happening. Thieves, get jumping into people's houses, taking property, a sexual assault there and there, and all that. When you hear that going on around you, where you stay, what comes to your mind first? You think about putting up a wall to close your house from intruders. Now that does not mean that you hate your neighbor or you hate the people outside. It means that you love your people and you want to protect them from bad characters that may want to come in. So for me, that's my take. That's how I look at these visa restrictions, that they have a leader who is acting as any of us would act if they are taking care of their family, that because of the so much waywardness, lawlessness happening around me, I need to ensure that my people are protected. I don't put up a wall all around my home because I hate my neighbor or I want to hurt my neighbor on the south or the west or the north. No, I put up a wall around my house because I care about the people in my house. So I think that's where they're coming from. So you find that also the other issue that US has been facing a lot has been the issue of assimilation, that many of many and a growing number of these immigrants that have moved to the US are not willing to assimilate, to embrace the US culture, to embrace US as a country. They want to retain their own, cultures, their own beliefs, their own values, their own, from the country that they came from. And as if that's not enough, they want to impose those very beliefs on the United States. Now we all are, okay, not all of us, many of us should be familiar with the saying that when you go to Rome, you should behave as the Romans do. You understand? Now that speaks to the whole instance that when you go to a foreign land, or when you go visiting, even if it's a relative or a neighbor, you don't impose your own rules. That for me, in my home, we do this, hence I've come to visit, we should do this also in your home. No, you have to submit to the rules of the person you've gone to visit, and that's on a personal level. So now also on this immigration, a scale, country to country kind of immigration, you find that when you go to another country, you should be expected to submit to the rules and regulations of that country. I think that should be common sense. When you go to Rome, do as the Romans do. The Ugandans also have a saying that Bogenda ebulyambwa olia embwa, or when you go where they eat dogs, you eat dogs. But it also speaks to the same, that you have to embrace the culture of the places you go to. But now USA has been suffering all increasingly that issue where immigrants go there and they don't want to assimilate. Now they don't want to associate or embrace the culture of USA, and as if that's not enough, they want to impose their own values, their own beliefs from their own home countries. Okay, and a case in point that I can look at, we can look at, I want a famous one that is still trending. We can look at the Democratic Party nominee for the mayor of New York City, the one with the Ugandan roots, Zoran Kwame Mamdani. One, he's a self-confessed socialist, and this now what is socialism? So socialism, I love this illustration that was put here. Socialism believes in sharing of resources. Now, not in everyone will be like, yeah, what's wrong with sharing of resources? But it believes that if I have, I'll use this example that I've seen, that if I have, say, 2 cows and my neighbor has none, I should get, 1 cow should be gotten from me and given to my neighbor. That's socialism for you. To bring it down to you to make sense, if you're a student, would it make sense for you that if you have scored A in class, and then there's your friend who has scored F, then they will come for you and say, no, why should you score A? Let's reduce some of your marks and give your friend who has gotten F so that he lifts up to D, and you also come to D so that you both score D. Would that be a fair kind of system? Of course, everyone will say no. Everyone wants to stay with what they have worked for. Again, so that's socialism in a nutshell. Whereas we know that USA is traditionally a capitalist country. Whatever you have, if you have your 2 cows, invest so that they multiply, and you get 2, 4. If you are selling the milk from the cows, then save up the money, get more cows, get a bull, and so that you expand your farm. It's about self-initiative, self-entrepreneurship. That's the system of the USA, economically speaking. But then you have a person like Zoran Mamdani. Of course, is now a US citizen, but then for him, he comes in with socialist beliefs and he wants to impose those on the US. I will pause there so that you may listen to this video where he specifically says that I don't think that we should have billionaires. Why does he think that? You should listen to him.
You are a self-described democratic socialist. Do you think that billionaires have a right to exist?
I don't think that we should have billionaires because, frankly, it is so much money in a moment of such inequality. And ultimately, what we need more of is equality across our city and across our state and across our country. And I look forward to work with everyone, including billionaires, to make a city that is fairer for all of them.
That belief, wherever I picked it from, and now he's trying to impose it on the US citizens, as in, that is contrary to the system that US has embraced and has gotten US to where it is, that he himself desired to move from where he was born or where not even perhaps the home country of his parents, but rather to go to the US. There is a reason why you admire the US, and it's because of the systems that they put in place that have gotten the country to where it is. Now you find certain immigrants who don't want to assimilate, to embrace those values, and now they want to import in other values. You get what I'm saying? So that has also caused a very, very serious problem. And also, they say that that is to create, socialism is meant to create a system of fairness, but that's not exactly fairness. Fairness to who? If you get what I have and you give it to my neighbor because they don't have, shouldn't you first address the issues why they don't have? And if I do not accumulate what I have, through crime, or that I stole someone's money, or I swindled, or money laundering, whatever, and I made an honest living and I became a billionaire, what's wrong with that? Now you find that someone's beliefs is said that there shouldn't be billionaires. Why? How? You get? So you find that on a wholesome scale, there's that issue of immigrants who don't want to assimilate. We also saw that a bit when you look at the California riots that have just happened, where some of the people were demonstrating against the works of the Immigration, Customs and Enforcement. You find that there are people who are masked, waving Mexican flags all over the place, and the reason was that if you, and they were banning US flags. You've seen that multiple times where there are riots and people banning the US flag. So the reason is that if you hate the US so much and you're waving your country's flag, rioting and all that, why don't you go back to your country? So you want to turn US into the country you ran from. So the issue of assimilation has also been quite the thorn in the flesh of the US, that I'm so sure is one of the reasons that informed the ongoing visa restrictions that have just been effected. Again, when you look at to back up a bit, talking about socialism. When you look at people like Zoran and the rest that back this socialism, they say they want equal outcomes, but pursuing equal outcomes that people all live on the same level is impossible, almost, even in families where we grew up. you have 4 children, same household, same parent, you are given the same opportunities, and you're taking perhaps even the same schools, the best schools, but you find that when we turn out in life, we are all at different levels, you understand? So really, at times, equal opportunities does not equal to equal outcomes. Whereas people tend to be focused on the outcomes. Why are billionaires? No, they think they should be focused on is equal opportunities. If opportunities are spread out for everyone to succeed, and I don't think that perhaps they are there. But US does a great job. That's why everyone calls it the land of opportunity. Everyone thinks that when you go to the US and work hard and put in your time and innovate, and you are entrepreneur in your mind, you're going to make money. Everyone thinks that they are, at least by and large, that the opportunities are spread out properly. But now people are looking at equal outcome, which is not even seen within the family setting. You find one is perhaps in the family, one is a billionaire, another, and perhaps they are struggling somewhere, another is mid-level, whereas they are all exposed to the same opportunities. Now, imagine someone searching for that on a national scale. Okay. So you find that when you look at the example of Zoran I've given of socialism, then you look at the example of those California riots where people are waving the Mexican flags, banning the American flag. There is a serious issue of a lack of assimilation, that people are going to the US in huge numbers, and yet they are not embracing the US culture. So that's why the US now, the current administration pushes back, and in order for our own security, because of the escalating number of criminals that are crossing the border illegally, and to safeguard our interests. And I would add culture, they are tightening the screws in regard to visa access. But again, for those who are pursuing the socialist path, there was a former Venezuelan political refugee who won Zoran Mamdani, who is looking to become the New York mayor. He warned that, this political commentator, he warned that socialism always fails. It does not matter the country or who applies it. It brings scarcity, repression, and ruin. It is a perverse ideology that attacks freedom, property, and human dignity. How does it bring ruin and repression? It brings it this way, that if, say, I have my 10 cows and my neighbor has, say, 0, and then you take away my 5 and give my neighbor some of the 5, so we both have 5, what do you think that will do to me? No, that will kill all my motivation to work, because whenever I work, my things have to be distributed to other people. And what do you think will be the effect to my neighbor who has just received 5 free cows? Will they have the motivation to work when they are receiving free things? And what will happen if today my 5 cows are gotten, out of 10, my 5 are given to my neighbor? My motivation to work is good, so I stay with my 5. My neighbor's motivation to work, 0, because he's receiving free things. Perhaps a certain time period down the road, his 5 cows or her 5 cows are done, and perhaps I still have 4 or 3. What next? They get my 1, give again the neighbor. So over time, what socialism does, over time, there are no resources to distribute. Why? You killed entrepreneurial skills, you killed the motivation of those that were making an honest living. And when you say that there shouldn't be billionaires, yes, you say billionaires today, you distribute their wealth, and then next will be there shouldn't be millionaires. At the end of the day, socialism leads to a poor nation or a poor society, because it tends to focus so much on equal outcomes, and those equal outcomes are not meant to elevate the ones who are below to catch up the ones who are up, but rather the ones who are up to keep giving to the ones who are below. And at the end of the day, the country or society runs short of resources and is poor. So that's what this Venezuelan political refugee was talking about, addressing Zoran. And in the article, it continues that, as born and raised in a country where the government built public housing and converted private housing into communes, where the state managed grocery stores, exactly what Zoran wants to do in New York, controlled prices and expropriated the wealth of the rich, took over the wealth of the rich in the name of social justice. Social justice, you take over the wealth of the rich in order to ensure that there's justice, we all are at the same level. Weapons were prohibited, and hate speech, which is any criticism of power, was punished by law. And it continues, I lived in the dream that a lot of New Yorkers want for their city. I had to flee to survive. As a teenager, I would go to the grocery store with my mom in search of eggs or corn flour to make their local, I think it's traditional food, arepas, the most traditional breakfast in Venezuela. But time and time again, we would find the shelves completely empty. I can't tell you how many times that happened, and every time she would remind me that years ago, this wasn't the case. She used to have plenty of options with multiple brands to choose from, but now there was nothing. The country she remembered no longer existed. How did Venezuela go from an oil powerhouse to having one of the highest inflations in the world? How does the country reach the point where my father, this communist is writing, an economist and owner of a small business, and my mother, who had doctorates in education, would have to stop eating meat to be able to feed their children? It's quite simple. People embrace the same socialist ideas that are popular in New York City right now. So you find that the very systems and beliefs that people are running away from, the immigrants are running away from to get into US, again, they're the very ones they want to import into US. So that lack of assimilation, add that to the increase in criminals in the US, add that to the economic pressure it's adding to the country. Anyone, any leader who loves their people or who loves their country would take drastic means to ensure that immigration or visas into their country are not easily gotten. The screws will be tightened, and that's what exactly the US is doing. And as if that's not enough, I also read about this Omar Fateh, again another running for the mayor of Minneapolis, who is again said to be from Somalia, who also immigrated to the US now he's also embracing the same beliefs as Zoran. So you find that this lack of assimilation, even if it were you and someone comes into your family, you welcome someone in your family, and then they don't want to belong. They want to do things their way. They want to do things like they were doing from wherever they are coming from. They are not part of the family. If they do not belong, there will be friction, there will be tension in their house. And sooner than later, as the head of the household, you may want to tell that person to step out, or you may have to review your stance on welcoming visitors or relatives to come and stay with you at home. And that's exactly what yours has done. But you know this, we see that Trump has threatened to also fight back to ensure that America does not become communist. I'll pause here and you watch this video, what he has to say about the potential of Zoran Mahmoudan becoming the New York mayor.
In New York, they're trying to elect a communist, Zoran Mamdani, the guy who wants to defund the police, take over the stores and run the stores and have the people hand out goods. And when everything falls apart, it always does. It always works that way. It never has worked any other way. Anarchy and dictatorships prevail. This guy is a communist at the highest level, and he wants to destroy New York. I love New York, and we're not going to let him do that. Generations of Americans before us did not shed their blood only so that we could surrender our country to Marxist lunatics on the eve of our 250th year. As President of the United States, I'm proclaiming here and now that America is never going to be communist in any way, shape, form, and that includes New York City.
But with that stance of Trump, you also find that his approval rating, that's as of November, his recent approval rating, you find that it's around 57%, and 43% disapprove. So by and large, you find that the US citizens are happy with these visa restrictions because they feel they are being protected by their leader from what they call an invasion, not even just an immigration. When someone fails to assimilate, they are invading you. But so then you ask, what should be the way forward? How should people behave when they migrate to different countries for various reasons? For me, one of the extreme examples that we have here in Uganda, you'd consider what Muzungu Boda does. He came here, he embraced the country, he loves it, even when he was, told to go back, he still loves the country. It's all about Uganda. How he does it, we may all disagree. We may disagree on that, but he tries to embrace the country and the culture. There's no two ways about that. He tries to fit in, he tries to love it, and over time you've seen so many people, mainly whites, you find them at Uganda Cranes games, supporting the country, donning the jersey. They are embracing the country. You understand? Yes, it's not that you give up your cultures. No, don't give up your language, but embrace the cultures of the country that you visited. Okay? Then the other very good example that you can look at, perhaps a moderate one more than Muzungu Boda, you can look at Kaman Malwach, the recent NBA player who has been drafted by the Phoenix Suns, who was born in South Sudan but was raised in Uganda. At his introduction, when he was just drafted, he wore that coat, and on one side it had the South Sudan flag, on the other side it had the Ugandan flag. That's a person who he has not given up his mother country, South Sudan, but he has also appreciated and embraced what Uganda has done for him in terms of his growth as a person and perhaps as a player. So it's not that you give up, but love the country where you are. Try to embrace their culture. Try to know more about them. It's not that, no, for me, this is my way, this is how I do things, and you have to accept me as I am. No one would agree to such a visitor in their own home. They will have to take steps. So in a nutshell, the previous administration has been, to a degree, the cause of the visa restrictions we are facing today. they muddied the waters, and then someone has to come in and try to purify the waters. The means would be drastic. Like anyone trying to stop the bleeding, you have to stop it as fast and as articulate as possible. And that's what I think the Trump administration is trying to do here. So those are the reasons that are why I think the visa restrictions or adjustments were effected. So it has nothing to do with the US setting third world countries or something. I even saw someone reason that Uganda, when the US citizens come in Uganda, they are given 3-month visas. While for us, when you go to the US, we're being given 2-year multiple entry visas. That so the US was revenging, tit for tat. You give us 3 months, we also give you 3 months. No, it's not that. I don't think it was played at such a petty level. I think these were the reasons: the massive influx of illegal immigrants into the US, and the effect on the economy, the expenditure. Some saying it ranges between 180 to 200 billion per year. Some even estimating it to be in the regions of 600 billion. Then, besides that, you have the criminal records of so many of these illegal immigrants: gang members, rapists, murderers, sex offenders, etc. And then the lack of so many to assimilate, to be part of USA, to embrace USA and its culture and what it stands for, the things that attracted you to the US, the things that made US, some don't want to embrace them, and then those who want to enforce their own beliefs upon USA, things like socialism, things that have failed in multiple countries, things that even if you brought them on a personal level, you'd disagree with them. People want to effect them on a national level. And if it's a citizen born and bred and, perhaps, but if an immigrant who moves there and you are imposing certain of these beliefs, then you may enforce them, you may be vocal about them, but they are working against your fellow countrymen who may want to access the same opportunities that you are accessing in the USA. So with that, I think those are the whys that explain the steps that USA took to restrict their visa entry from 2 years for Uganda, multiple entry, to 3 months single entry. For Nigeria, from 5 years multiple entry to 3 months single entry. All right, thank you so much for watching this episode of Weapons of War podcast. And if you have made it thus far, that means that there's something that at least has intrigued you. If you want to continue the conversation, please drop your comments in the comment section below so that we may continue the discussion. And if you've again loved this episode, please feel free to comment, like, and share with your comrades so that we may get to know more about the things that are unfolding around us. I've been your host, Eden Chironde, and catch you again in the next episode.